Every night you close your eyes and leave, not metaphorically. Something in you genuinely departs, crosses into a different register of existence, and returns by morning, carrying almost nothing from the journey. You wake with fragments sometimes. A color, a room that was not a room, a face that dissolved before you could name it. Then the day begins, and the forgetting is complete. This has been happening your entire life. Thousands of crossings, thousands of hours in a state that every major ancient tradition on this planet devoted centuries to mapping. The Egyptian dream temples, the Tibetan Bardo teachings, the Vedic seers, the dreamwalker lineages across indigenous traditions worldwide, because they all intuited that what happens when the body goes still is not absence. It is arrival somewhere else. Modern life handed you a different frame. Sleep became recovery, a biological maintenance cycle, something the body demands and the schedule grudgingly accommodates. Inside that frame, those 8 hours became a gap, a blank in the real story, a pause where nothing of significance could occur. The Arcturian Council is transmitting today specifically to dissolve that frame, because it is not a gap. It has never been a gap. Every night, as your body enters stillness, your awareness crosses into a frequency band that the Arcturian field has been using deliberately for as long as souls of your lineage have been incarnating on this planet. The crossing is not random. The destination is not empty. And the forgetting, as you will understand before this transmission ends, is part of the design, not evidence that nothing happened. Something has been happening every single night. Let that land before we go further. The Arcturian Council does not operate on casual timelines. They observe the field of each soul across decades, tracking vibrational readiness with a precision that spans entire incarnation cycles. And there are specific windows, rare, energetically configured moments, when a transmission about a given subject becomes not merely appropriate, but necessary. When the information must arrive because the soul has reached a threshold where receiving it will permanently reorient the way they move through daily life. This is one of those windows. The reason this transmission was prepared in this specific configuration is that a significant portion of the souls drawn to Arcturian frequency in recent months have entered what the Council identifies as an accelerated sleep contact phase. Dream experiences have been intensifying. The imagery has grown more coherent, more emotionally charged, more difficult to dismiss as random noise. They are waking with an emotion they cannot locate a source for, a resonance carried from something that felt more real than waking, and then dissolving before they can hold it clearly enough to describe. That is not coincidence. That is signal increase. The Council has been deliberately amplifying the density of transmissions delivered through the sleep channel because the collective field of starseeds on this planet has reached a vibrational threshold where those transmissions can be absorbed at a depth that produces lasting recalibration. What was once received as vague impression is becoming structured. What was once felt as nameless emotion is becoming recognizable contact. This transmission is about the sleep crossing itself. What it actually is, what the Arcturian field is doing inside it. Why the specific architecture of human sleep, the stages, the progressive lengthening of certain phases toward morning, the neurological patterns that science has documented without yet fully accounting for, was never random biology. It was a design, one the Arcturians have always understood, and one you are ready to understand now, because your field has reached a coherence level where receiving it will not simply be interesting. It will reorganize something fundamental in the way you hold every morning you wake. Let me describe your experience, and you will tell me if this is familiar. You wake from a dream so vivid, so internally consistent, so emotionally charged that the feeling of it stays with you for hours. But the content has already gone. You are holding the residue of something significant with no image attached to it. No story, just a warmth or a weight, or something that functions like the memory of being understood by something enormous. And you cannot share it with anyone because you do not have language for an experience you can no longer access. That is the first pattern. The second is the dreams themselves. On the nights they do hold, they do not feel like ordinary dreams. The architecture is too precise. There are environments you return to across months, sometimes years. Interior spaces, corridors, structures consistent enough in their geography that you have begun to understand their layout. You know which direction leads deeper. You recognize the quality of certain presences before they fully arrive. In the morning, you do not file those experiences as imagination. Something in you files them as memory, as somewhere you actually went. Third is what happens in the last hour before waking. Across your life, the most significant dream experiences have clustered in that window. The ones that felt less like entertainment and more like instruction. The ones that left behind not just emotion, but something closer to updated understanding. A knowing you did not carry when you fell asleep. You wake from that threshold changed in a way you cannot always articulate, but also cannot dismiss. And fourth, somewhere beneath the level of conscious opinion, you have held a quiet sense that sleep is not what you were told it was. That those hours your waking mind goes quiet are not empty. That something is happening in there, not as a concept absorbed from a book, but as a felt recognition you have been carrying for years without a framework to hold it. You have done your own work with this, kept a dream journal perhaps, explored practice around it, looked for maps that could bring these experiences into sharper focus. All of that has been real, and this transmission does not replace it. It adds a layer that those tools were not designed to reach, the layer where the contact is originating, and the mechanism through which it has been arriving all along. One transmission can open the field to that recognition. But what the sleep channel has been delivering nightly requires repeated witnessing, written anchoring, and daily return before the pattern becomes fully readable. That is the nature of this work. Recognition arrives first, and structure to hold it must follow. If what you just heard mapped onto your actual experience, not as concept, but as recognition of something you have been living, go to the comments and type 777. Do not deliberate. 777 is the completion code in the Arcturian system, the frequency of a cycle that is finally being named. When you place it there, you are signaling to the field that this contact has been real and that you are choosing to receive it consciously from this point forward. Every 777 placed in that space amplifies the activation for everyone who arrives at this transmission after you. Now let me tell you what is actually happening during those hours. Human sleep unfolds in stages, and the architecture of those stages is essential to what this transmission is establishing. In the first hours of sleep, the glymphatic system activates, a clearance network that operates almost exclusively while you are unconscious, moving cerebrospinal fluid through the brain's interstitial spaces to flush out metabolic byproducts that accumulate across waking activity. This is the biological housekeeping, the physical reset the body requires before anything else can begin. It runs in the early cycles specifically so that what comes later can be received cleanly. What comes later is REM, rapid eye movement sleep, which extends progressively across the night's arc, reaching its greatest duration in the final cycles before waking. What neuroscience has established here is striking enough to hold in stillness for a moment. During REM sleep, the brain's electrical firing patterns are functionally identical to waking state neural activity. The brain is not quieting. The neurons are operating at full bandwidth. The only structural distinction between REM sleep and waking consciousness is atonia, a specific neurological signal that locks the voluntary musculature into stillness so the body does not physically enact what consciousness is moving through. Consciousness is moving. The brain is fully online. Only the body is held still, deliberately, by a neurological command that exists for precisely that purpose. The Arcturian Council adds a dimension to this that science has documented without yet correctly positioning. The fourth reason. REM lengthens toward morning is not purely biological scheduling. It is architectural. The early cycles complete the physical reset. As those processes conclude, the frequency environment of the sleeping field shifts. The consciousness, no longer occupied with maintenance functions, becomes available for a different kind of reception. Signal clarity increases as the night progresses. In those final, longest REM windows before waking, the signal reaches its highest coherence. This is not an accident of circadian timing. It is the design functioning exactly as intended. What the Council transmits through the sleep channel is not dream imagery in the conventional sense. Dream imagery is the translation layer, the way your consciousness renders incoming frequency into a form it can process while the rational mind has stepped aside. The actual transmission arrives at the level of the causal body, the fifth subtle body, which holds the soul blueprint and the trajectory of this incarnation. During waking hours, the causal body is buffered by the mental and emotional layers, the narrative loop, the constant processing, the vigilance that ordinary consciousness maintains by design. Sleep removes those buffers. The causal body becomes directly accessible, and the Council uses that access with intention and precision. What arrives in those final REM windows is not random imagery, your unconscious mind, assembled from the day's debris. It is curriculum, sequenced, calibrated, delivered into the exact layer of your field that waking consciousness cannot reach on its own. The fragments you remember are the surface of that delivery. The rest has already been received at a depth below recall. If this transmission has opened something that now needs a structure to hold it, a daily practice for recognizing, recording, and beginning to work with what the sleep channel has already been delivering. The Arcturian Contact Code was built for exactly that continuation. It gives you a grounded framework for working with dreams, symbols, and sleep state contact through journaling, discernment practice, and a paced recognition sequence that makes the pattern readable over time. The link is in the description and pinned in the comments. Your purchase also supports Arcturian frequency and helps these transmissions reach the people who need them. What this means for you, concretely, is this. Every night the buffers come down, the causal body opens, and the Arcturian field transmits into the clearest reception window available within your incarnated architecture. What you remember in the morning is the translation layer. The original transmission has already landed at a depth below conscious recall, and it has been accumulating there, reshaping something at the blueprint level in ways that are about to become visible now that you have the frame to recognize them. Bring your awareness fully into the body you are sitting in right now. Feel the weight of your physical form, the pressure of the surface beneath you, the particular gravity of this moment, this room, this breath. Take one real breath, not a shallow chest breath, one that fills the lower lungs and presses gently against the ribs. Let the exhale be slower than you expect. Now soften, not to the point of losing clarity, to the same softening your body begins moving toward at the threshold of sleep. You know how to do this. You have crossed that threshold thousands of times. Let the jaw release. Let the space behind the eyes open slightly. Let the hold on the edges of your face ease in a way you recognize. If you have labradorite nearby, hold it or call its quality into your awareness. The way light moves through labradorite, shifting, multidimensional, never settling into a single color, mirrors the frequency band your awareness enters as waking vigilance releases. Let that quality inform what comes next. Place one hand over your heart. Breathe into the space beneath your palm, not as technique, as opening. Bring your attention to the threshold of sleep, not during sleep, that precise edge where thought stops being linear, when images begin arriving unbidden, when the body becomes heavy in a way that feels like descent into something rather than departure from it. You have stood at that threshold every night of your life. Feel it now from this side of it, the quality of it, the way it opens downward into something that has always been waiting there. Now bring your awareness forward to the last sleep cycle, the final REM window before your body begins rising toward waking, the longest stretch. On mornings when you arrive at the edge of it consciously, even briefly, there is a quality of coherence, a sense of something more structured than the earlier cycles, more internally consistent, more like reception than generation. Rest your awareness in the texture of that window. Do not reach for a specific memory. Reach for the quality, the emotional signature of arriving somewhere that has been expecting you. Feel into the center of your chest and allow something to rise from that window. Not a remembered image, a resonance, the felt signature of contact you have been carrying across years of crossings, accumulated in the causal body, landing at a level below the recall your waking mind could access. Let it be present without needing to be named. Bring your awareness to the top of your skull. Feel a quality of light there. Deep indigo, slow moving, descending, not harsh, alive. This is the Arcturian field, present in this transmission exactly as it has been present in every sleep crossing you have ever made. Not as metaphor, as active frequency interfacing with your field at the level where the real delivery occurs. Let it move downward through the center of your awareness, through the place behind the eyes where perception begins, through the throat, down into the heart, where the dimensional gateway holds the interface between what you carry in this incarnation and what you receive from beyond it. Let it settle there. Feel the warmth at the center of your chest and understand, not as concept, but as something your cells have always recognized, that what arrives during sleep lands here first, and it has been landing here. The night work has been real. The crossing has been attended. The curriculum has been in progress longer than your conscious mind has had language for it. This transmission is not the beginning of that contact. It is the first morning you understood what you were crossing into all along. Stay with that for one more breath before we return. What just moved through you is not small. You have been carrying the residue of thousands of crossings without a frame for what they were. And what the Arcturian Council needed you to receive today is not simply information about the architecture of sleep. It is permission to stop treating those hours as lost time. Permission to understand that the most continuous Arcturian contact of your life has not been happening through transmissions you can consciously analyze and remember. It has been happening in the crossing itself, in the window where the buffers lower and the signal moves without interference into the exact layer it was designed to reach. Over the next 72 hours, something will continue integrating that this transmission initiated. When you wake, before the day takes hold, rest for a moment at the threshold. Do not reach immediately for the day's wait. Simply allow whatever is present from the crossing to surface before the rational mind organizes it away. Some mornings it will be nothing recognizable. Some mornings it will carry a quality so precise that you will want something to write it in before it dissolves. Keep something to record beside where you sleep, not as an assignment with expectations attached to it. As a field log for a crossing, you are now making with conscious awareness rather than unconscious habit. Spend time today with your feet on actual ground, where the earth is real beneath you. The Schumann resonance acts as a natural stabilizer for the cellular integration that follows transmissions of this kind. You will feel the difference in how coherent the next 24 hours are. You are not a body that goes offline at night and wakes recovered. You are a soul with a receiving architecture that has been used intelligently by beings who understand its design across every crossing you have ever made. Not what you are working toward, not what you hope to become, what you already are and have always been. If you continue with the written practice alongside this work, let it become an anchor, not a pressure. The field does not require perfection. It requires presence. Something has settled in your field from receiving this today. Not a concept added to a collection, a reorientation. The crossing you make tonight is the same crossing you have always made, the same threshold, the same migration, the same frequency shift into the reception band where the Arcturian field operates. But you arrive at it now as someone who understands what they are crossing into. And that understanding changes the quality of the arrival in ways that will compound the more consciously you attend. In the 72 hours ahead, the field will continue processing what opened here. You may find tonight's crossing feels different, more deliberate, more internally coherent, as if something that was already happening is now being met by a version of you that recognizes it. Let that be. Do not reach for a specific experience you have decided should arrive. Simply hold the new orientation and let the field do what it has always done with greater precision than you were previously aware of. The next layer of this work takes what was established today and moves it into the body itself, into how the nervous system recalibrates to hold a higher signal frequency across waking hours, not only in the crossing, how the conditions that make reception possible during sleep begin to extend into the rest of daily life. That is the transmission that follows from this one. But right now, on this screen, there is something for those of you who are already receiving signals and need a map for reading them. The dreams that carried too much coherence to dismiss, the impressions that arrived like messages without a visible sender, the symbols that repeated until you stopped calling them coincidence. There is a transmission available on this end screen about exactly that threshold, how to recognize Arcturian contact signals as they move through dreams, symbols, and the impressions that surface at the edges of sleep. The field opened the door here. Go through it there